You there? The black girl in the back with the cheap uniform. Come up here now. Chase Hendricks's voice sliced through the Orpheum Theater. 500 guests turned. Zara Williams was 11 years old. Her hands trembled. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean save it. He grabbed her shoulder, dragged her into the spotlight. Let's see if you can actually sing or if you're just taking up space. He snapped at his band. Give her higher ground. The impossible note that made me $2 million. He leaned close, microphone off, but hers still on. Fail quietly, kid. The audience held its breath. What she did next didn't just prove him wrong, it ended everything he'd built on lies. The lights were blinding. Zara felt them before she fully understood where she was. The stage seemed larger than life now that she stood at its center. The polished floor reflecting the glow like a mirror she couldn't escape. Every small movement felt exposed. Every breath sounded too loud. Her fingers curled into the fabric of her uniform skirt. It wasn't new. Her mother had pressed it carefully that morning, smoothing out the wrinkles on their small kitchen table. Just do your best, she'd said, kissing Zara's forehead before heading to another night shift. This was never supposed to be Zara's moment. 4 hours earlier, she'd been one of many children waiting backstage, legs dangling from folding chairs, whispering nervously with her classmates. They were told to stay quiet, to stay out of the way, to remember they were lucky just to be there. Zara had nodded like everyone else. Chase Hendricks stood a few feet away now, towering over her confidence with his smile. To the crowd, he looked generous, even playful, the famous singer giving a child a chance. Cameras loved that story, but Zara felt something else entirely. Up close, his presence wasn't warm, it was sharp, controlled. His hand had been firm on her shoulder when he pulled her forward, just gentle enough to look harmless, just tight enough that she couldn't step back. The audience waited. Some leaned forward, some smiled politely, others already looked uncomfortable. Zara glanced toward the choir risers. Ms. Johnson, her music teacher, had gone very still. Their eyes met for half a second. No words, just concern. Zara had sung in church since she was 5. She'd sung during power outages, during storms, during nights when worry sat heavy in their apartment. Singing was where she felt safe. This didn't feel safe. The band adjusted their instruments. Chase raised his hand, silencing the room with ease earned over years of applause. He looked at Zara again, then at the crowd, as if presenting evidence. This is what opportunity looks like, he said smoothly. Zara's stomach tightened. Opportunity shouldn't feel like fear. The opening notes of Higher Ground began to rise, soft at first, familiar, dangerous. Zara took a breath, steadying herself, not knowing yet that the sound she was about to make would echo far beyond this theater. Zara hadn't been brought on stage to be celebrated. She'd been brought there to be controlled. And in the next few moments, she would have to choose between shrinking in silence or standing in truth. The music hadn't reached the hard part yet, but Zara already felt the pressure building in her chest. Higher Ground always started gently. That was the trick. It invited you in before demanding something most voices couldn't give. As the band played, Zara's mind slipped backward, to earlier that afternoon, long before the lights, long before Chase Hendricks's smile had turned sharp. The choir had been told to wait backstage during sound check. Sit still, stay quiet. Zara had tried, truly. But curiosity tugged at her, the same way it always did when music was nearby. She'd edged closer to the curtain, peeking through a narrow gap. Chase stood alone on stage then, rehearsing. No cameras, no audience, just him, the band, and a handful of technicians. His voice sounded good, strong, confident. Zara remembered thinking, that's why people like him. Then he reached for the note, the one everyone talked about. Something went wrong. His voice climbed and slipped. Not a disaster, most people wouldn't have noticed, but Zara did. The sound didn't land where it was supposed to. It wavered, then stopped. Chase cursed under his breath. "Run it again!" he snapped. "Bring the track up on the bridge!" The engineer adjusted something. A button clicked. They tried again. This time the note soared. Perfect, clean, shining like glass. Zara frowned. It sounded different. Not wrong. Separate. Like it didn't belong to the rest of the sound. like it was floating above the music instead of living inside it. Zara didn't have the words for it. She only knew what her ears told her. She'd been born that way, able to recognize notes the way other kids recognize colors. Perfect pitch, Ms. Johnson called it. Zara had stepped back quietly, heart racing. She didn't tell anyone. Who would believe her? Now, standing center stage, she understood why Chase's hand had tightened on her shoulder, why he'd chosen this song, why he'd leaned in and whispered for her to fail quietly. He knew she'd heard. The verse ended. The melody began its climb. Zara sang, keeping her voice steady, careful not to rush. The audience listened politely. Some nodded along. She sounded good. For a kid. Chase watched her closely, jaw set, waiting. The bridge approached, the place where the song demanded its impossible proof. Zara took a breath and didn't sing. "Mr. Hendricks?" she said softly into the microphone. His smile flickered for the first time. "Yes, sweetheart." Her heart hammered, but she kept her voice calm. "Can you turn off the backing track?" the band faltered. A ripple moved through the seats. Chase laughed, a quick sound meant to dismiss the question. "That's part of the arrangement." "But you sang it without the track earlier," Zara said. "At soundcheck." Silence fell. Heavy. Dangerous. Cameras zoomed closer. For the first time that night, Chase Hendricks wasn't in control of the room. Zara hadn't accused him outright, but she'd opened a door he couldn't close, and what happened next would force Chase Hendricks to choose between exposure and collapse. For a moment, no one moved. The question Zara had asked, so quiet, so respectful, hung in the air like smoke. Chase Hendricks stood frozen, his smile locked in place, the kind performers learn to hold when something goes wrong on stage. Then he nodded. "Fine," he said, voice tight but controlled. "You want to hear it raw." He turned toward the side of the stage. "Kill the track." The sound engineer hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, long enough for the cameras to catch it. Chase's eyes flashed. "Now." A button clicked. The music thinned instantly. The fullness vanished, leaving nothing but live instruments and open space. The theater felt smaller, more exposed. The audience leaned forward without realizing it. Chase lifted his microphone and began to sing. At first it worked. His voice moved smoothly through the opening notes, practiced and confident. Years of training showed in every controlled breath. A few people nodded, relieved. Maybe the child had misunderstood. Maybe this was about to be embarrassing for her. Zara stood perfectly still, listening. The melody rose. Easier notes passed, then higher, higher still. Chase's shoulders tightened. His neck muscles stood out beneath the stage lights. His breathing shortened, just enough for Zara to notice. The bridge arrived. The note loomed. Chase reached for it and missed. His voice cracked, breaking apart just before the pitch it was meant to hit. The sound splintered and fell short, unmistakable to anyone paying attention. He stopped abruptly, coughing once, then laughed as if it were nothing. "Dry throat," he said quickly. "Long show." A few nervous chuckles answered him. Most of the audience stayed silent. Zara lifted her eyes to him. "You didn't hit it," she said. The words were quiet. They cut anyway. Phones came out across the theater. Whispers spread like wind through tall grass. Chase's smile thinned. "Sweetheart." "I counted," Zara continued, her voice steadier now, carried by something stronger than fear. "On your album, that note happens every time. Always perfect, always the same." Chase's face flushed. "I have perfect pitch," she said. "That note is C6. What you just sang was lower." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Before Chase could respond, a voice came from the wings. "She's right." Everyone turned. The sound engineer stepped into the light, his face pale but resolved. "I've run that track for 5 years," he said. "He's never sung that note live, not once." The theater went dead silent. Chase spun toward him. "You're fired." "I know," the man replied. "But she's 11, and she told the truth." Chase reached for Zara's arm, gripping it just enough to guide her away. Cameras caught everything, And that was the moment the night stopped being about a song. It became about a lie that could no longer stand. The truth was out. But Chase Hendricks wasn't finished. And the next move he made would turn a public moment into a personal battle. For a heartbeat after the engineer spoke, Chase Hendricks stood perfectly still, as if his body hadn't yet accepted what his mind already knew. Then his expression changed. The warmth vanished. The charm evaporated. What remained was something harder, anger sharpened by fear. "This is ridiculous," Chase said into the microphone, forcing a laugh that fooled no one now. "You're all going to believe a confused child over me?" A few people shifted in their seats. No one answered. "I've sold millions of records," Chase continued. "I've won awards. I've been singing this song for 15 years. "Then sing it!" someone called out from the crowd. The words landed like a punch. Chase's jaw tightened. "I just did." "No," another voice said. "You didn't." The room began to turn. Zara could feel it, the way air changes before a storm. Phones were everywhere now, red recording lights glowing like warning signals. Chase looked down at her. "Fine," he said, his voice low and sharp. "You think you're so special? You sing it." Zara's stomach dropped. "No warm-up," he added quickly. "No practice. Right now." The crowd murmured. This wasn't playful anymore. This was punishment. Zara's hands trembled at her sides. For the first time since stepping onto the stage, fear surged up hard and fast. She was 11. She was tired. She hadn't planned this. She'd only told the truth. Ms. Johnson stood halfway out of her seat in the choir section. "You don't have to." Zara shook her head slightly. She closed her eyes. She thought of Sunday mornings at church, of standing on a wooden riser, sunlight filtering through stained glass, of singing not to impress anyone but because it felt like honesty. The band waited. Zara nodded once. They began again. Her voice entered softly, careful, steady. The first verse sat low and comfortable. Some people exchanged glances. She's good, they thought. But that's not enough. The melody climbed. Zara followed it without strain. Her breathing deepened, grounded the way Ms. Johnson had taught her. There was no rush, no panic, just sound. Chase took a step back. The bridge approached. This was where he'd failed. Zara didn't hesitate. She shifted smoothly, lifting her voice higher, cleaner. G5, A5, B5. The audience leaned forward as one, then she reached the note and hit it, clean, pure, effortless. A sound rang through the theater, bright, unmistakable, alive. Zara held it, steady and unbroken, then let it rise even higher before easing it back down. Silence followed. Then gasps, then shouting, then thunderous applause. Chase Hendricks stood frozen, because in that moment, everyone understood. The note had never been his. Zara had done the impossible, but exposing the lie came with a price. And what Chase Hendricks did after leaving the stage would be far more dangerous than anything that happened on it. The applause followed Zara as she stepped off the stage, but it didn't feel real to her. It sounded distant, like it was happening to someone else. Her legs felt weak, her hands numb, as if her body had only just realized what it had done. Backstage was chaos. People shouted into phones. Assistants rushed past without looking at her. Camera crews argued with security. The neat, polished world of the gala had cracked open, revealing something frantic underneath. Ms. Johnson wrapped an arm around Zara's shoulders. "You did good, baby," she whispered. "You did more than good." Zara nodded, but her stomach was tight. She kept thinking of Chase's face as she'd finished singing, not angry, not shocked, but calculating. They were ushered into a small side room to wait. A folding chair, a paper cup of water. The door clicked shut behind them. Minutes passed, then more. It was nearly midnight when the door opened again. A man in a dark suit stepped inside, carrying a leather briefcase. He smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. "Miss Williams," he said smoothly. "I'm Robert Kraft. I represent Mr. Hendricks." Ms. Johnson stood immediately. "She's a child. You don't speak to her without her mother present." "Of course," the man said, raising a hand. "This isn't an interrogation. It's an opportunity to clear up an unfortunate misunderstanding." "There was no misunderstanding," Ms. Johnson said. "Your client lied." The lawyer's smile thinned, just slightly. "The music industry is complex," he replied. "Artists use support, enhancements. It's standard practice." Zara looked up at him. "But he said he sang it live." Kraft turned his gaze to her, voice softening in a way that felt practiced. "You misunderstood, sweetheart, and unfortunately, that misunderstanding has caused serious damage." He opened his briefcase and slid a document onto the table. "If you sign this," he said, "everyone can move on." Ms. Johnson read the first few lines and stiffened. "This says Zara made false accusations, that she apologizes, that she was seeking attention. In exchange," Kraft continued calmly, "Mr. Hendricks will not pursue legal action, and he'll personally fund a music scholarship, $50,000. Zara's breath caught. $50,000 meant lessons, college, help for her family, everything they'd never been able to afford. "And if she doesn't sign?" Ms. Johnson asked. The lawyer closed his briefcase slowly. "Then Mr. Hendricks will file defamation claims. Against Zara, against you, against the school." Zara felt the weight of the room press down on her. She looked at the paper. Then she pushed it back. "I'm not signing," she said quietly. "I didn't lie." The lawyer's smile disappeared. "Then," he said, standing, "you've chosen a very difficult road." He turned toward the door, pausing just long enough to add, "By morning, this story will look very different." And then he was gone. Zara had refused his money, but by sunrise, she would learn the true cost of telling the truth. Zara woke to the sound of her mother's phone vibrating non-stop on the kitchen table. It was still dark outside, too early, the kind of hour that meant something was wrong. Her mother sat stiffly in a chair, hospital scrubs wrinkled, eyes fixed on the screen of her laptop. She hadn't slept. The glow from the screen lit her face in a way Zara had never seen before, tight, pale, afraid. "Baby," her mother said quietly, "don't go online." Zara already knew what that meant. Her phone buzzed in her hands, notification after notification, stacking faster than she could read them. Messages from numbers she didn't recognize, missed calls, alerts from apps she barely used. She opened one anyway. A photo of their apartment building filled the screen. The peeling paint, the broken gate. The caption underneath read, "This is where the girl who exposed Chase Hendricks lives." Her throat closed. Another post showed her school photo, pulled from an old yearbook. Someone had circled the free lunch sticker on her tray, looking for a payout, the comment said. Always has been. Zara felt the room tilt. By mid-morning, the story had been rewritten everywhere. Not about a famous singer exposed, not about the note, about an ungrateful child, about a family desperate for money, about a teacher who failed to control her student. Reporters stood outside their building. Ms. Johnson called, voice tight. "Don't come to school today, the principal wants a meeting, there are people outside." People weren't just watching anymore, they were judging. By noon, the lawsuit arrived. $10 million. Zara watched her mother's hands shake as she read the papers. "We can't fight this," she whispered. "We don't even have a lawyer." The lawsuit wasn't meant to win. Zara could feel that. It was meant to scare, to exhaust, to make her small again. The phone rang again. This time, it was the school. The principal sounded tired, older than he had the day before. "The board is considering a temporary suspension," he said. "Not because of what Zara said, but because of the attention, the threats. We can't keep students safe." "So she's being punished for telling the truth?" her mother asked. Silence. That night, Zara lay awake between her brothers, listening to them breathe. She thought about the paper she'd refused to sign, about how easy it would have been to make everything stop. Her mother sat on the edge of the bed. "If you want to say sorry," she whispered, "I'll understand." Zara stared at the ceiling. "No," she said, "I wouldn't take it back." Her mother nodded slowly, tears falling. "Then we fight." Zara closed her eyes, not knowing how that fight could be won, only that tomorrow would be worse. She didn't know yet that help was already on its way. Zara thought she was alone. But the truth had traveled farther than the lies, and the next knock on her door would change everything. The knock came just after sunrise. Not the sharp, aggressive pounding Zara had grown used to over the past day, but something calmer, steady, patient. Her mother opened the door cautiously. A woman stood in the hallway, neatly dressed, carrying a briefcase and an expression that held both confidence and concern. "Mrs. Williams?" she asked. "My name is Diana Carter. I'm an entertainment attorney." Zara's mother stiffened. "We can't afford—" "I'm not here to charge you," Diana said gently. "I'm here to help, pro bono." Zara stepped closer, heart racing. "Why?" her mother asked. "Because your daughter told the truth," Diana replied. "And because suing an 11-year-old is intimidation, not justice." Within minutes, the small kitchen table was covered in papers. Diana spoke quickly but clearly, explaining how defamation law worked, how truth was a defense, how Chase Hendricks's lawsuit was meant to crush them with fear. "He doesn't want a trial," she said. "He wants silence." A second knock interrupted them. Ms. Johnson entered, breathless, followed by a man Zara recognized from the night before. The music producer who'd spoken up after her performance. "I'm Marcus Webb," he said, shaking Zara's hand carefully, as if afraid to break something fragile. "I've been in this industry 30 years. What you did took more courage than I've had most of that time." He pulled out his phone and showed them the screen. Artists, musicians, names Zara had only heard on the radio. "Protect that child." She told the truth. "We stand with Zara." The internet had begun to shift. Then the third knock came. A woman with a camera crew stood in the doorway. "Rachel Goldstein, 60 Minutes, she said. "We're investigating Chase Hendricks. His catalog, his contracts, the voices behind his records." Zara's mother hesitated. "Why help us?" Rachel met her eyes. "Because I have a daughter her age." By noon, the story had changed again. Not rumors, evidence. Contracts surfaced, frequency analysis, session singers stepping forward one by one, confirming what Zara had heard with her own ears. The loudest voice came from a woman named Sophia Mitchell. "I sang those notes," Sophia said in a video, watched by millions within hours. "I was paid to stay quiet, and I stayed quiet too long." Zara watched the screen in disbelief. She wasn't alone anymore. That afternoon, the school board called back. The suspension was withdrawn. A statement was released supporting Zara's right to speak the truth. Donations poured in to replace Chase's withdrawn funding, more than they'd ever had before. For the first time since the gala, Zara felt her shoulders relax. The fight wasn't over, but the silence was. The truth had found allies, but Chase Hendricks still had money, lawyers, and pride. And the final battle would happen where lies fear the most. In court. The courtroom was smaller than Zara expected. No bright lights, no music. Just wooden benches, pale walls, and a low hum from overhead fixtures. It felt ordinary, almost boring, which somehow made everything more frightening. Zara's feet didn't reach the floor as she sat between her mother and Diana Carter at the defense table. She wore the same white blouse from the gala, carefully washed and pressed. It felt like armor now. Across the room, Chase Hendricks sat with a row of lawyers in expensive suits. He looked composed, almost calm, as if this were just another meeting he expected to win. His eyes never met Zara's. Reporters filled the gallery, pens ready, cameras banned, but memories sharp. Judge Patricia Moreno entered, her presence quiet but commanding. She scanned the room once before speaking. "We are here on the plaintiff's request for an injunction," she said, "to silence further statements." Her gaze settled on Chase's attorney. "You are asking this court to restrain the speech of a minor." "Yes, Your Honor," the lawyer replied smoothly. "False statements causing irreparable harm." Judge Moreno raised an eyebrow. "False?" Diana stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to present unedited footage from the gala." The screen lit up. The courtroom watched Chase drag Zara onto the stage. Heard him whisper, "Fail quietly, kid." Saw him miss the note. heard the engineer speak up. The video ended. Silence followed. Judge Moreno leaned forward. "Counsel," she said to Chase's lawyer, "do you have evidence the child lied?" The lawyer hesitated. "The music industry commonly uses—" "Yes or no?" the judge interrupted. He didn't answer. Diana called Sophia Mitchell to the stand. Sophia spoke clearly. About contracts, NDAs, being paid to disappear. She held up documents, dates, signatures. Judge Moreno listened without interrupting. Then she turned to Chase. "Mr. Hendricks," she said calmly, "you've built your claim on the idea that this child damaged your reputation with falsehoods." She paused. "Can you, right now, sing the note in question?" The room froze. Chase's lawyer stood quickly. "Your Honor, this is inappropriate." "It's very appropriate," Judge Moreno said. "If the statement is false, prove it false." Chase swallowed. His mouth opened. No sound came out. Judge Moreno nodded once, as if confirming something she already knew. "The motion for injunction is denied," she said. "Furthermore, I find this lawsuit appears intended to intimidate truthful speech." Her gavel came down. "Truth does not become defamation because it is inconvenient," she added, "especially when spoken by a child." Zara didn't fully understand what had happened until her mother hugged her, shaking with relief. Outside the courtroom, reporters surged forward. But inside, something quieter happened. For the first time since that night on stage, Zara could breathe. The judge had protected Zara's voice, but the world was about to hear it louder than ever. And what followed would end Chase Hendricks's career for good. The court ruling spread faster than any song Chase Hendricks had ever released. By the time Zara got home, her mother's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Not with threats this time, but with apologies. People who had doubted her, people who had stayed silent, people who suddenly wanted to be on the right side of history. Chase's label released a statement that afternoon. "We are reviewing our relationship with the artist." That phrase sounded careful, temporary, safe. It lasted 6 hours. By evening, the statement changed. All upcoming projects have been suspended pending further investigation. Radio stations quietly pulled his songs from rotation. Not all at once, just enough for listeners to notice. A morning host laughed nervously before skipping higher ground. "Just giving it a rest," he said. Streaming platforms followed. First, the playlists disappeared, then the featured banners, then slowly the silence. The industry had smelled blood. Behind closed doors, people began talking. Former collaborators, backup singers, producers who'd signed NDAs they no longer felt bound to honor. One by one, they stepped forward. "I thought everyone knew," one said in an interview. "I was told it was normal," said another. "I was afraid to lose my job." Each confession added weight. Each truth pulled the structure down further. Zara watched it all from the couch, legs tucked under her, overwhelmed by how big everything had become. She hadn't wanted this. She'd only wanted the lie to stop. A knock came in the evening. Marcus Webb stood at the door again, smiling gently. "I brought something," he said. Inside was a framed contract. "Scholarship," he explained. "Lifetime vocal training. Travel covered, no conditions." Zara stared at it. "Why?" Marcus shrugged. "Because you reminded us what talent is supposed to sound like." News channels replayed her performance next to Chase's failed attempt. Split screen. No commentary needed. Chase's response came the next morning. A video apology. He sat in a dim room, eyes lowered, voice subdued. He spoke about pressure, expectations, mental health. He did not mention Zara by name. The comment section noticed. "Apologize to the child. Sing it live. We're still waiting." The video was taken down within hours. Later that day, Chase's tour was officially cancelled. Sponsors withdrew. The awards committee announced a review of past wins. Zara's mother turned off the TV. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. Zara thought for a moment. "No," she said. "But I wish it hadn't taken this much." Her mother nodded. "Sometimes the truth costs more than we think." Zara looked down at her hands, the same ones that had trembled under the lights. They were steady now. Chase Hendricks was falling. But Zara's story wasn't about his end. It was about what happened when the world finally listened to her voice. The first time Zara stepped into the recording studio, she froze. The room was quiet in a way that felt heavy, padded walls absorbing every sound. A large microphone stood in the center, suspended like it was waiting for her. This wasn't a stage. There was no crowd, no applause to hide behind, just her voice. Marcus Webb noticed her hesitation. "You don't have to prove anything here," he said gently. "This room exists for you, not the other way around." Zara nodded, though her heart still raced. She put on the headphones. The sound of her own breathing filled her ears. "Whenever you're ready," the engineer said. She closed her eyes. She didn't think about Chase Hendricks, or the courtroom, or the headlines that still flashed across screens every day. She thought about her grandmother humming while washing dishes, about church pews and sunlight, about singing because it felt like telling the truth out loud. When she opened her mouth, the sound that came out was softer than the gala performance, but deeper, fuller, honest. The engineer's eyes widened. Marcus leaned back in his chair, stunned. Zara sang for 3 minutes. When she finished, no one spoke. Then the engineer quietly hit the intercom. "We got it." The clip went online 2 days later. No fancy video, no dramatic title, just a still image and a caption, "Zara Williams, live, no track." It spread faster than anything before it. People listened differently this time, not waiting for a scandal, not looking for a mistake. Just listening. Messages poured in from everywhere. Parents, teachers, retired musicians. People who said her voice reminded them of something they'd forgotten. Churches invited her to sing. So did schools, community halls, small theaters that smelled like dust and memory. Zara chose carefully. She sang in places where people leaned in close, where applause felt personal, where she could see faces soften as they listened. At one event, an elderly man in the front row wiped his eyes. "That note," he said afterward, voice trembling. "I've waited my whole life to hear it sung like that." Zara smiled shyly. "Thank you." Her mother watched from the back of every room, pride and fear mixed together. "They're listening now," she said one night. "Does that scare you?" Zara thought about it. "A little," she admitted, "but I think it's okay." She was still doing homework, still arguing with her brothers, still learning who she was. But something had changed. The world hadn't just heard her sing, it had heard her stand. Zara had found her voice, but the final chapter of this story wasn't about fame. It was about the moment she met Chase Hendricks again, face to face. The letter arrived without warning. No return address, no logo, just Zara's name, written carefully on the envelope, as if whoever sent it had practiced. Her mother opened it first. Inside was a single page. "I owe you an apology. If you're willing, I'd like to speak. Privately. No lawyers. No cameras." It was signed simply, Chase. Zara felt her chest tighten when she read it. For months, his name had been everywhere. Headlines, debates, cautionary lessons. She hadn't seen him since the courtroom. "I don't want you to feel pressured," her mother said immediately. "You don't owe him anything." Zara knew that. But curiosity tugged at her. Not the kind that wanted drama, just closure. They agreed to meet in a small public music hall, mid-afternoon. Neutral ground. Diana Carter insisted on waiting nearby, just in case. Chase arrived early. He looked smaller somehow, thinner. The confident shine was gone. No entourage, no sunglasses. Just a man sitting alone in the front row, hands folded. When Zara walked in, he stood. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. She nodded, staying near the aisle. "I'm not here to explain myself," Chase continued, "or defend what I did. I'm here to say I was wrong." Zara studied him. He didn't look angry or desperate, just tired. "I used someone else's voice," he said, "for years, and I convinced myself it didn't matter, because people wanted the result, not the truth." He swallowed. "When you heard it, I panicked." Zara's voice was steady. "You tried to scare me into lying." "I know," he said, "and I'll regret that more than losing everything else." There was a long silence. Why did you choose me? Zara asked. Chase looked up, shame flooding his face. Because you were small, and I thought no one would listen. Zara nodded slowly. They listened. Yes, he said, because of you. He reached into his coat and placed something on the seat between them, a handwritten letter. That's my public apology, he said. It names you, clearly, if you allow it to be released. Zara didn't touch it. You don't get forgiveness just because you're sorry, she said gently, but telling the truth matters. Chase nodded. That's all I'm asking to do now. As they parted, he stopped. You have a gift, he said. Don't ever let anyone tell you it belongs to them. Zara walked away without looking back. She didn't need to. Zara thought the story was ending. But the world had one more moment waiting. And this time, she would choose how it was heard. The final performance wasn't announced. There were no posters, no headlines in advance, no promises of something historic. Yet the small concert hall was full. Zara stood behind the curtain, hands folded, listening to the low murmur of the crowd. People of all ages sat shoulder to shoulder, some holding programs, some holding memories. These were not people chasing trends. They were people who had lived long enough to recognize truth when they heard it. Her mother squeezed her hand. Sing the way you always do, she whispered. That's enough. Zara nodded. When she stepped into the light, the room quieted instantly. No band, no backing track, just a piano and a single microphone. She began softly, choosing a song older than the scandal, older than the lies. A song that had been sung by many voices before hers. But never like this. Her voice carried gently at first, wrapping around the room like a familiar feeling returning after a long absence. People leaned in, not wanting to miss a breath. As the melody climbed, Zara didn't rush. She didn't prove, she didn't challenge, she trusted. And when the moment came, the note everyone knew, the one that had started everything, she reached it without effort. It wasn't louder, it wasn't dramatic, it was honest. Somewhere in the audience, someone began to cry, others closed their eyes, a few held hands. The note lingered, then faded, leaving something heavier behind. Understanding. The applause that followed wasn't explosive, it was steady, respectful. The kind that says, "We hear you." After the show, Zara stood near the exit, thanking people as they passed. An elderly woman paused, touching Zara's arm gently. I watched what they tried to do to you, she said. And I watched you stand anyway. That mattered to more of us than you know. Zara smiled. Thank you for listening. That night, as she lay in bed, Zara thought back to the stage at the Orpheum, to trembling hands, to a man who believed power could silence truth. He'd been wrong, not because she sang better, but because she refused to lie. Some voices are loud, some are famous, and some, quiet, young, underestimated, change everything simply by telling the truth. Zara Williams didn't just hit a note a powerful man couldn't. She reminded the world that truth doesn't need permission to be heard. If this story moved you, don't scroll away. Like this video to support voices that refuse to be silenced. Subscribe for more real stories of courage, justice, and quiet strength. And most importantly, share this video with someone who still believes the truth matters. Up next, a powerful man laughs. A teenager stands alone. And one boardroom decision makes him turn pale. You won't want to miss what happens next.